Hey guys, thank you for tuning in to my new mixing tutorial series. I hope you guys are all doing well. Happy Thanksgiving to all, and I hope that you guys have a really great time with your family or friends or whoever you choose to spend it with, and that you be safe. So the whole point of me starting this video series off is I just really felt like I needed to show the importance of some things that I've learned along the way. I've been doing this for about 11 years now, and there are things that I've learned that have made a significant difference in creating what I feel like are better mixes. And there are things that I just want to share with you guys, and maybe they'll help you, and maybe you're more seasoned, and some of the things that I'll cover in this video might seem, I guess, kind of like common sense, but I'm hoping that somebody somewhere can see this as helpful. And yeah, I'm just gonna get right to it. So what I'm gonna be talking about in this video is the importance of subtractive EQ. And I want to talk about that because as of right now, I know there are a few videos out there on YouTube, and there is some articles that kind of give a glance to it, but for me personally, I feel like it's not emphasized enough about how really truly important subtractive EQ is, and how it can really help you mold and manipulate a sound to the way that you want it to be, without really even touching or boosting any frequencies or adding, a whole lot of extra. And yes, boosting frequencies and adding, different plugins and processors is necessary, depending on what your goals are. But I just really felt it was necessary to talk about the importance of this. So the first thing I'll cover and I'll go over is, what is subtractive EQ? For those who don't know, I mean, it's exactly what it says it is. I mean, you pull up an EQ plugin, just for the sake of example, it doesn't really matter what kind of EQ plugin it is. It's just the action of diminishing or removing certain frequencies that, case in point, might sound nasty to you. For example, a kick drum, there might be frequencies in there that might make it sound, for example, boxy or muddy, or maybe there's some nasal frequencies that you don't like in the high end from the 2 to 3K region. It's really a case by case basis, and every kick drum sounds different. Every guitar sounds different. Every guitar tone sounds different. Every bass guitar sounds different. Every song is essentially going to have different factors that you have to treat individually. But subtractive EQ is the action of removing those frequencies to basically create clarity. And as I mentioned previously, sometimes, it, depending on the context of the mix, if you feel like, your kick drum needs a little bit more smack in the high end, if you want to hear a little bit more high end, you can boost that. And to me, I feel like it's best to do that in the context of the mix. What I like to do personally is subtract EQ and solo, just to clean things up a bit. And then in the context of the mix, that's when I'll really start to do a lot of my manipulation to kind of make everything glue together and fit well together, because essentially what matters is the way that the mix sounds as a whole. Because as a listener, somebody who's going to hear this on grocery store speakers, or at Hot Topic, or even in the car, they're most likely never going to hear, what things sound like in solo. They're always going to hear, the mix as a whole and as a song in completion. So I feel like that's also another factor to keep in mind, that really when you're doing this, what matters most is the context of the mix as a whole. So that's subtractive EQ, just really the action of removing things that are distracting, whether they sound boxy or muddy or nasally, or maybe there's something really hissy, like a really hissy high end. Maybe there's too much sibilance in the voice, in which case you can use a de-esser or maybe some EQ to kind of tame that. But yeah, that's subtractive EQ, or at least that's what I define as subtractive EQ. And the next thing I want to talk about is, well, simply put, why is this important, and why should anybody be prioritizing subtractive EQ as opposed to prioritizing, say, for example, if a guitar needs more high end, like, let me just boost 8K real quick. Let me just throw some, let me throw some definition on there real quick. And a simple answer to that, I can only really speak for me personally, but the way I look at it is, depending on what kind of instrument you're working on, I'll just keep using guitar as an example. Say you feel like your guitar tone's almost there, but you feel like it needs a little bit more clarity, a little bit more definition. What I would do personally is sweep the frequencies that I might have an idea that might be causing the clarity in the guitar tone not to be able to breathe. And I know I kind of worded that really weird, but essentially what I'm trying to say is take out the frequencies that are suffocating your tone and not enabling it to have clarity. Maybe there are some really nasty nasal frequencies in your high mids in your tone, and maybe there's some low mids in your tone that are creating some kind of like low mid woofy noise that maybe you need to subtract out. Sweep your frequency band and try to find these frequencies before you reach for the high end and start boosting stuff, because you never know. Sometimes it really all it takes is removing a set of frequencies to create clarity, and then boom, I mean, it sounds a lot better just like that. And of course, like I mentioned previously, within the context of the mix, you can boost and you'll be able to hear wholly in the context of the mix how much treble your guitar tone actually needs, rather than trying to accomplish that in solo. I feel like if you try to do too much in solo, and I'm kind of a hypocrite about this because I do a lot of stuff in solo too, but I'm really trying to get better with that. But I say this because it can cause you to make, decisions that maybe aren't too smart, because essentially trying to make things sound really, really good on their own is all fine and good. But, once you turn everything else on, you're working on a kick drum, and once you bring in the guitars, the bass, the vocals, the lead guitar, if there is any, or maybe there's synth or piano, I mean, then you start to really see what you need. Do you need more low end? Do you need more high end? And again, why I mentioned previously, it's best to do these things when you hear everything else with it. But as far as solo, that's the best time to do subtractive EQ. And pretty much why I find it important in creating clarity in whatever instrument. This applies to everything. This applies to kick drum, snare drum, guitar tone, vocals. This applies to everything. Now, the last and final thing I want to talk about, and I do apologize for this video for being so long and me talking so much, and I thank you for your patience and bearing with me through this video. I'm really just trying to be as thorough as possible, because when I watch production videos, or I'm watching, my favorite mixing engineers do what they do, like, I want to be a fly on the wall. I want to absorb everything they have to say, regardless of how long it takes. I'm super passionate about every aspect of creating, listening to music, and manipulating audio. So I'm all about this stuff, and I hope that there's somebody out there, again, that gains something from this and enjoys this mixing series. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about is actually, well, how do you do this? And I know, again, it might seem simple and straightforward to those who have already been doing this, or maybe you might be new to this, but it's in the name, subtractive EQ. So the way that I go about doing this, if I hear something that I don't like, well, first off, I've never created a song that didn't require me to do at least a little bit subtractive EQ. Every time I create a new song, it's just there. I'm assuming there's something I got to do. I've never had the opportunity to just, leave things super raw like that, nor have I really had the desire to. So the way I go about doing things is simply sweeping. Go ahead and grab yourself an EQ plugin. Doesn't really matter what kind, doesn't matter what you're working on, doesn't matter what genre of music or what instrument you're working on. Just slap an EQ plugin on there and start sweeping. What do I mean by sweeping? You're going to go ahead and take one of the bands, and what I like to do personally is just make it really narrow. I usually put it at 100% and I just sweep. Even if I don't hear anything that really jumps out at me, because sometimes there are things that you don't hear right away until you really check, to be completely honest. But what I'll do is I'll just sweep those bands back and forth until I hear something that displeases me or that I find distracting, or that can be distracting within the instrument. Say if I want a kick drum to be, if I want it to have a bit more punch, but I feel like there's a boxy frequency within the kick drum that's not allowing the kick drum to have that punch, then you take your band, make it a little bit narrow, and try to sweep in those areas that you feel like might have that boxy frequency. And it's really up to taste. It's really up to you how much you want to subtract of that frequency. Sometimes I take all of it out. Sometimes I like to be subtle with it, because that's also an important factor. You don't really want to overdo, things too much, or maybe you do, because what it all comes down to at the end of the day is there's no right or wrong way to do this. It's really about your goals, as I said previously, and what you want to achieve. It doesn't really matter how you get there. It's just, are you willing to do the work and what it takes to get there, no matter what it takes. And doing all these little subtle things can help you get there. Now, last but not least, I'm going to demonstrate that on a kick drum for you guys. I'm just going to be sweeping some frequencies so you can hear what might be potential problems within the kick drum that I'm using. For this example, I'm going to be using the infamous Kick 10. I'm sure if you don't know it by name, once you hear the audio, you'll know exactly what it is. But I enjoy using the kick drum, and it just goes to show that, honestly, it's pretty overused, but even still, you can still come up with a variety of sounds depending on how you choose to process something. So I'm going to get right to it, and I will not be talking during the demonstration, just simply making my adjustments, and then I'll do a couple quick A and Bs just so you can hear the differences of before and after. All right, guys, that's all I got for you today. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And remember, a key point to keep in mind is there's really no right or wrong way to do this. Music is really, truly limitless, and how you choose to process something is really up to you. And that's the beautiful part about all this is you can give each guy the same kick sample or the same guitar tone, but the results they're going to be endless possibilities to what everybody can come up with. There's no right or wrong way to do this. So have fun doing it, and never stop making music. And to you guys, I just want to say have a great day. And if you feel so inclined, just go ahead and hit the like button and maybe share with somebody that you feel might learn something from this. And I hope you guys have a great day or night. Take care.